I think they're pretty completely full of in all honesty. I know they're capable of 3-betting light, but the fact that the bounty is on makes it even more likely that that's what they're doing, and I definitely want to 4-bet here very aggressively. And then we get some good news, because the cutoff reaches for some chips, but they're not calling chips, those are raising chips. They 4-bet me to 625. G'day poker people, welcome back. Perhaps unsurprisingly, after getting absolutely destroyed in the previous 5-10 session, I was invited back to play the game again, which I was very excited because I get to try to chase some of those losses, but because we're going to get another exciting vlog for you guys, and this game was definitely an exciting one. So let's not waste any more time, get to gambling, and let's go. Before we hop into this absolute action-packed ripper of a session, I've got an announcement I'm pretty excited about. We're going to be playing a private 5-5-10 game at the Silks Poker Club in Tampa on the 3rd of July, which is a Thursday during the daytime, and I'm going to be vlogging it. So if any of you want to come and join the private game, make sure you hit me up on Instagram at LeeBets or via email leebets@gmail.com, because I really want to see some of you guys out there. Hopefully we have an action-packed game. I get some of y'all on the vlog, and maybe you'll have the opportunity to receive one of these punts, which I may or may not make occasionally. So hit me up if you want a seat in the private game, or if you want to come say hi, that's where I'll be. Really excited to play with some of you guys, or potentially see some of you out there. July 3rd, Silks Poker Club in Tampa. For now though, let's get into this action. So we are back in the 5-10 mix for 2,000 bangers, where we play this first interesting hand, which is actually a double board Alpina Loca bomb pot. Let's go, kicking things off with a bomb, and I'm in the +1 position with 5 deuce deuce with 2 spades. So we're going to put both the flops up there, and as you can see on the second one, we do have a full house with our pocket twos. So when a small blind goes ahead and bets 75 and they get called by a loose aggressive under the gun player, the action's on me, and I go ahead and discard that pesky little 5 of spades there to complete our full house. And then I think we want to go ahead and raise with this hand. We have the second board almost entirely locked up, and I think a raise for sure can get called by a queen, which, unless they have a pair on the first board as well as a queen, we actually scoop that hand for now anyway. But also our hand's just going to benefit a lot from equity denial, since it's very unlikely we do have the best hand on the first board. So I raise it up to 275, and then a passive cutoff calls before the action's on an aggressive button, who raises it up to 750. Then the action's on the small blind, who's in the tank for, honest to God, 2 minutes, and he's making a massive song and dance, and then he ends up folding his hand. So not entirely sure what that's about. I think that makes it very likely that they did have a queen, in all honesty, and they're making a big song and dance about a fold. Whatever the case though, when the under the gun player folds, the action's back on me. We literally only get scooped by quads so far anyway. We'll be very happy to get it all in with the queen, since we actually are going to scoop that hand sometimes, and if they have a set or 2 pair on the first board, we're going to chop most of the time. So no brainer, I'm all in for the 2,000 bangers I brought in with. The cutoff folds and the button throws in the call. The button says please don't have queen 10, so I show him my pocket twos, then he shows pocket kings, and we've got the run outs there, and as you can see, we end up chopping with the pocket kings. We are chopping this bomb pot, but happy to get some action with a flopped full house. That's always fun. That was a ripper start to the session, and maybe I'm starting to feel myself a little bit too much, because when the action folds to my button with 6-4 offsuit, I opened it to 30. Too loose, in all honesty, and I do get punished for it when a loose aggressive small blind 3-bets to 80. The action's back on me, and when we are 2k effective with the villain, I don't think I'm going to be folding any hand I'm going to get to play the pot in position with for this price. So I throw in the call. It's definitely max punishment for my loose open though. Whatever the case, we are heads up to a flop of a 5-3-3 rainbow. So the open-ended straight draw, I'm pretty happy to see this flop about as good as you could expect with the 6-4. When the villain checks it over to me, I definitely want to go ahead and start stabbing on this board. I think the villain is going to have 1 million ace high combinations in their range, which I really don't expect to fold to 1 barrel, but if we do want to get him off that hand eventually, we definitely need to start betting now. So I go ahead and make it 50. I'm in love with this sizing. I think 75 would be a bit better, just because they can call with that ace high now and we bluff them off later in a big pot. Whatever the case though, I made a slight mistake. I made it 50, and then the small blind does call. We're heads up to a turn, which is the 10 of clubs, and then something unexpected happens. The small blind actually leads out for 125. And when they do this, I'm honestly sitting here a bit dumbfounded. I have no idea what this bet means. I mean, maybe they're doing it because they picked up equity with a club draw. Maybe they turn turned at 10. Maybe they're just bluffing because they floated on the flop with queen high and they don't want the turn to go check. Really confused by this bet, and when I am confused and I'm getting a good price to play the potting position with my open-ended straight draw, I do throw in the call here. Let me know what you would do in the comments though. I'm still a bit bum puzzled by this spot and not sure what the lead means. Whatever the case though, we are heads up to a river, which is the king of hearts, and then the small blind does something concerning. They check it over to me. Now the turn lead did confuse me, but I think when they check the river here, they're planning to check call extremely frequently, probably with a 10, a king, maybe even like ace queen, just wants to check call because they think I'm a nutcase, which fair enough. So when they do this, it really discourages me from bluffing. I think if I wanted to bluff them off of like a 10 or an ace high, I would need to go something absolutely giant, like maybe even bigger than 1,000. And when I have 6 high, like I just don't want to risk that much when they might call me off with a king anyway. So I do decide to make the disciplined check back, and then the villain shows king jack of spades. So really wasn't expecting to see that hand. Definitely a little bit regretful I didn't raise on the turn because they were just stabbing because they had nothing, but there you go, nice hand villain, and definitely going to make notes for the next time they lead into me. So for these next few hands, we actually have the stand-up game on. Everyone at the table is literally standing up, and you get to sit down as soon as you win a hand, and the last person that sits down has to pay a bounty to everyone else at the table. We was really trying to negotiate to get it to be a $100 bounty, but people didn't want to do that, so we ended up playing for $35. Whatever, I'll take the action, but if the next few hands get a bit crazy, that might be the explanation why. You're going to see what I mean in a second, because the action falls to my button with 6 deuce offsuit. I think this is the first hand, so everyone is still standing up, and I really want to sit down so I don't have to pay the bounty, so probably going to open any 2 cards from the button. I go ahead and make it 30, and then yet again, the same loose aggressive opponent from the previous hand 3-bets me to 80 yet again. The action's back on me here, and I think they're pretty completely full of shit, in all honesty. I know they're capable of 3-betting light, but the fact that the bounty is on makes it even more likely that that's what they're doing, and I definitely want to 4-bet here very aggressively. Using 6-2 offsuit is way too loose, even with those dynamics in mind. This is a complete punt, but I do 4-bet it up to 260. Don't do what Donnie Don't does, and don't do this at home because it's an absolute punt. And then unsurprisingly, I do get called by the small blind anyway, which is very concerning because I think they're going to have at least something that's a decent hand in this spot. So when we go heads up to a flop of 10-7-3 rainbow, the small blind checks. I do want to go ahead and stab at this board. I don't really expect them to fold that often since they do have a condensed range from calling the 4-bet pre-flop, but I really just don't want to check here and then I end up losing to queen high that might have folded to like a couple of barrels. So I go ahead and make it 175, and then unsurprisingly the small blind does call. The turn is the 10 of hearts. Awful turn because now it's going to be very hard for us to represent an overpair since they're going to want to check a lot when top pair pairs on the flop, and my opponent could just have a 10 anyway. So when they check it over to me, as much as it is heartbreaking to give up with 6 high, I just think I have to in this spot. So I go ahead and check it back. Then the river's the queen of clubs, even worse because my opponent has a bunch of queens, a bunch of 10s here. So when they go ahead and bet for 350, really don't want to rip it all in. I think those hands are very likely to call a shove anyway with the stand-up game on. So I just make the disciplined laydown that I should have done 4 streets ago, and then the villain shows ace jack, so there you go. Then they ask me, was this good? And I tell her, like, yeah, in all honesty, that was good. I do think I could have bluffed you off of it though, in all honesty. So of course, villain sat down in the stand-up game, and we've played a few more hands, and now there's only 4 people left standing. Unfortunately, I am one of them, and the situation, I mean, it started off pretty desperate, and it's only got more desperate. So when the action falls to my low jack, I'm going to be opening pretty wide here, really trying to sit down and avoid paying the $350-ish bounty. So when I peel king 9 offsuit, I guess this is good enough to open. I go ahead and raise it to 52 using a larger size, just really trying to realize fold equity. But then I get called by an aggressive button and a small blind as well, the button is sitting down and the small blind is standing. So we go 3 ways to a flop of queen 9-7 with 2 spades. So pretty happy to flop a pair here. I think everything goes up in value when you are still standing in the stand-up game. So when the small blind checks it over to me, I just want to go ahead here and bet for essentially value. I think it's going to look like I'm stabbing very frequently on this flop, so I want to go for thin value. I go ahead and bet 75, and then both the villains call, which I was not happy to see. We are 3 ways to a turn, which is the 5 of diamonds, putting out backdoor diamonds. Small blind checks it over to me, and now I think this is a really interesting spot because my logic of c-betting middle pair on the flop for value, I think it still holds here. I think I'm liable to get called very, very light. Having said that though, the chances one of the villains has a queen is very likely when they both overcall on the flop, so maybe it's getting a bit too thin. In game, I went ahead and bet 225. I think this is too loose, so I think I'm getting called way too often by better hands. Some worse hands will call, particularly draws, but yeah, I think it's just way too loose in this spot against 2 people. Heads up, I would prefer it. Whatever the case though, I make it 225, and then the button goes ahead and raises to 750 when the small blind gets out of the way. Like, this is such a sick spot. I think it's actually less likely that the villain is bluffing me here, since they expect me to call pretty light, since I'm still standing in the stand-up game. And it's pretty easy for me to be behind on this board. 8-6 got in as a straight on the turn. If the opponent had 7-5, I wouldn't be totally shocked either. And even if they do have something like a strong draw, yeah, I wouldn't be. We don't have great equity against that hand with only a middle pair. So I'm forced to go ahead and fold here. And I'm still standing in the stand-up game. God damn it. So despite a valiant effort, I do end up losing the stand-up game, and I'm forced to pay $245 total to the other players in the game. Absolutely sick, because I ended up losing over $1,000 if you included all those poor attempts I made at winning hands. So, yep, I am fishing at the stand-up game, but we're back to regular poker now. Hopefully I can turn things around in the game I'm more used to. So the action folds to my button yet again, and I've got King-Jack offsuit. Finally, a halfway decent hand I can play. I raise it up to 30, and then an aggressive big blind, 3 bets to 75, getting this price to play the pot in position at 1.9k effective. I think we have a pretty clear-cut call here. So I throw in the call, and then we are heads up to a flop of 766 rainbow. The big blind goes ahead and c-bets for 75, and really could go either way between calling or folding here. Getting to play this pot in position relatively deep, I think it's an okay spot to call, but we definitely have to try and bluff occasionally or run out, so it's going to be good for us to do so. So I throw in the call here, and then the turn is the Jack of Hearts. Love seeing that turn. Definitely don't need to bluff now. When the big blind checks it over to me, I absolutely want to go ahead and bet here. I think if the opponent has any hand that's ace queen or stronger, they probably will call a pretty decent sized bet in this spot. So don't want to go ahead and bet too small, but don't want to go too large either and accidentally value on ourselves if my opponent did check a bigger over here or ace jack. So I decide on making it 200, and then the big blind thinks for a little bit before throwing in the call. So love that we're getting action with our top pair here. And then the river is the 9 of diamonds. And the big blind actually leads out for 350. So about a half pot size bet. A little bit concerned that they did take a check call line with a hand that's ace jack or anything between ace jack and pocket aces, essentially. Pocket nines we also lose to now as well, but I think they might have used a larger bet size with that hand. So I don't think we can do anything here but just call. The opponent could just be bluffing with our ace queen combinations or backdoor hearts that missed. So I do go ahead and throw in the call, and then the big blind tells us those magic words, "You're good." I end up showing my king jack and raking in this pot. You love to see it. So let's go. Maybe we're changing things around. Let's see if we can keep the momentum up in this next one, where we've got an under the gun straddle on. You'll love to see it. The action actually folds to my big blind with ace king offsuit of premium. Finally, we're getting some strong hands. I raise it up to 80, and then the same loose aggressive straddle that we've been battling all session, unsurprisingly, 3 bets me again. They go ahead and make it 250. Now I think we have a pretty interesting decision whether we want to call or whether we want to go ahead and 4-bet, and I think this might actually be a really good spot to play ace king as kind of a trap. I think the villain's going to have a lot of worse ace x hands in their range, which might fold if I go ahead and 4-bet. So I really want to just call and play this hand as a bit of a trap in a heads up pot. It's definitely dicey out of position, but I decide to go for it in this instance. I throw in the chat wrap, I throw in the call. And then we are heads up to a flop of ace 10-3, all diamonds. So not only do we flop top pair, but we have the nut flush draw as well. I'm still going to check it inflow over to the villain, and then she goes ahead and bets 175. And I do briefly consider check raising, but I think it's getting a bit thin. And if the villain does have a worse hand that's like ace X without a diamond, I don't think they'll call anyway. So we really just want to flat here and keep the bluffs in their range. I throw in the call, and we're still heads up to a turn, which is the beautiful queen of diamonds. I wasn't really worried about being behind at any point in this hand, but then we turn the nizzles and there's no worries at all. Did consider potentially leading here, but I think, like I said, we're just calling on the flop. There's just a bunch of incentive to keep my checking range strong and inducing bluffs from an aggressive villain. So I do check it over to them. Unfortunately, though, they do check back. So we get to see a river, which is the 10 of clubs. The action's on me, and I am in the tank a while, actually, thinking whether I should bet or check here. Ultimately, I decide to check, just trying to induce bluffs and thin value bets from the villain, but maybe there's more value in leading. Maybe the turn check back is indicative of some showdown value, and I'm just missing value here by checking. Should maybe just go ahead and bet something like 300 or smaller. In game, I do check it, and then she does check back, which is pretty heartbreaking to see. I end up showing my king high flush, and then she mucks. So even though I'm raking in a pot here, I think I didn't play it great and probably missed a bit of value by not betting on the river. Next hand, yet again, we've got the under the gun straddle on, and I know, because it's me, I'm the under the gun straddle, and then the action's on a loose aggressive cutoff who goes ahead and raises it to 60, and the action falls to my straddle, and I wake up with it. I peel the most beautiful hand in all of poker. Pocket aces, let's go. Look at that beautiful hand there. It's just so appealing, such an attractive hand. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet against the loose aggressive villain here. I size it to 250, and then we get some good news because the cutoff reaches for some chips, but they're not calling chips. Those are raising chips. They 4-bet me to 625. We are 3.2k effective with the villain, so there's definitely tempting to go ahead and 5-bet. Probably less than all in here for value, but I do think there might be a little bit more EV in keeping our calling range strong. The opponent is loose aggressive, so I actually think they're going to have a higher ratio of bluffs than you would typically expect. It's a good spot to just call and induce bluffs from my opponent here. So I throw in the call, and we are heads up to a flop of King 3 Deuce a rainbow. I go ahead and check it over to the villain, and they bet 255. Part of me is tempted to check raise to maybe get value from Ace King, but I think on this dry board there might be a little face up, and we're just going to fold out all the villain's bluffs, which I think they're going to have a lot of stuff like Ace 5, Ace 4 has a gut shot, Ace Queen is also potentially there, and if they have anything with lower showdown value than Ace High, then yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to get value from those hands at all with the check raise. So I continue to trap, continuing to induce bluffs. I throw in the call, and we heads up to a turn, which is the 10 of spades. I check it over to the villain, who goes ahead and bets 950. The action's on me, and a pretty interesting spot. I do not want to go ahead and fold this hand when I have played it as a trap, and I still think it's possible. The opponent is betting Ace King or Queen Queen for, I say thin value, but it's not really that thin. Part of me is tempted to rip it all in, but again, I think that will be a mistake. We are playing this hand as a trap. We are going to make the most EV when the loose aggressive villain decides to continue bluffing. So with that in mind, I think we just have to keep going with our trap here and throw in the call. That's what I do. I throw in the call, and then we're heads up to a river, which is the Queen of Spades. Pretty gross river. We do lose to King Queen now. We lose to backdoor spades as well. A little bit less concerning since we do have the Ace of Spades. Still though, going to continue the trap and check it over to villain. Maybe some merit in leading here because Ace King probably won't shove on this run out, but I think I'd rather just check it over and potentially induce bluffs, or potentially maybe even fold if they go all in. So I go ahead and check it over to villain, and then they are in the tank, honest to God, like 2 minutes straight. Really not sure what to read into it. It does make me think that they probably do not have a completely nutted hand like a flush or two pair, but maybe they're thinking about going for thin value with Ace King. Maybe they're thinking about ripping it all in as a bluff. Whatever the case, though, after 2 minutes of tanking, they end up checking it back. I show my pocket aces, and of course it's good when they check back. They muck their hand, they say nice hand, so we don't get a reveal of what they have, but let's go, maybe things are turning around. We scoop in a 3.7k pot with our favourite hand in all of poker. Yeah, love to see it. So I feel the momentum changing around in this session, and maybe it's a good thing because we have a double board PLO bomb pot in the next stand. Love these bloody things. So I'm in the low jack with King 964 with two different flush draws, and I'm going to put both the boards up there. As you can see, we don't have much on the first board except for bottom pair, and we do have top pair, not great kicker on the second board. So when the action checks me, I'm just going to check it, try and draw for as cheap as possible, and we do get free turns because the action checks through. The first one is the the 9 of spades, not only giving us 2 pair on that board, but also the second nut flush draw. And the second board is the 6 of diamonds. So we actually have 2 pair on both boards now, as well as the flush draw on the top. So when an aggressive under the gun player bets 150 and the action folds to me, I think we have to go ahead and throw in the call here. I think raising gets a bit dicey since it might actually fold out some of the worst flush draws in other people's ranges, which we really want to keep in so we can value bet the river. And yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a huge overplay having 2 pair on both boards, but yeah, I don't know. I decided to throw in the call. Let me know if you would raise in the comments below. And then an aggressive hijack calls as well. So we're 3 ways to 2 different rivers. The first river is the 8 of spades. Let's go. We make the second nut flush on the first board. And the second board is the ace of diamonds. When the under the gun player who bet on the turn checks it over to me, I definitely want to go ahead and bet here. And I decided to use a smaller size. I'm really just trying to get called by hands that have worse flushes on the first board, because we're actually going to scoop most of those with our 2 pair on the second board. And don't want to limit damages a bit too when one of the villains does have a nut flush draw, which might also have 2 pair on the second board since there's an ace on the second board. So I think it's a good spot to go ahead and down bet a little bit. I ultimately decide to make it 250, which I think is like chef's kiss, perfect size bet. So I make it 250, and then the hijack throws in the call and the under the gun player folds. I end up showing my hand and the hijack shows 8-7-6-4. So they're playing 6-7 on both boards, which is a straight on the top board and a worst 2 pair on the second board, which means we're scooping the double board bomb pot. Let's go. Very hard to do that in double board PLO, but we managed it in this instance. You love to see it. G'day poker people. One of the reasons I've moved from 1-3 to 2-5 and up to 5-10 in such a short period of time is because I had a database full of my own hand histories that I could objectively look at and see where I was spewing off a bunch of money. The only way I was able to collect them was on the Fastroll Poker app. It's basically like a poker tracker, but specifically for live poker players. You can input your hand histories manually. It takes a matter of seconds, and at this point I have thousands, and I really know where I've been fucking up when I play poker. If you want to test it out for yourself, you can use the code LEEBETS and get the first month free on an annual subscription. No commitment required. The code's LEEBETS. Go use it, collect that hand histories, and improve your poker game. So I'm not going to lie, they held us a bit in the first half of the session, but boy have we made an absolute comeback. We keep scooping these massive vans, have worked up a very respectable stack for a 5-10 game. So let's keep the momentum rolling into the final interesting hand of the session, which occurred about 9.5 hours into the session. I've already told the table that I'm going to leave at the next dealer change, so maybe that informs the dynamics of this next hand. Whatever the case though, passive cutoff raises it to 30. Then I'm on the button with the pocket jiggities, the JJ Abrams. Of course I'm going to go 3-bet this premium. I make it 100, and then I get called by the small blind as well as the original raiser. So we're 3 ways to a flop of 8-6-3 with 2 spades. The small blind goes ahead and checks it over to the cutoff, who goes ahead and leads for 200. Now I will say, when the cutoff leads for a larger sizing into 2 people, I think it is a pretty strong range in all honesty. Definitely going to have all of the sets in their range, but I also think they could potentially have pocket 9s or pocket 10s as well. So really don't want to go ahead and fold my hand just yet. Nut flush draw actually also something they could have as well. So I do throw in the call here, but I think it will be wise if I proceeded with caution, because I do think they have a pretty strong range. So I throw in the call, the small blind folds, and then we are heads up to a turn, which is the 10 of diamonds, which is a pretty bad turn card for us because now we lose pocket 10s. I also think pocket 9s will be a little bit discouraged. Then the villain goes ahead and bets 200. They've only got like 700 left in their stack, so I was planning to fold if they went all in on the turn, but then the small bet kind of baits me in, like maybe they're not that confident about the strength of their hands. Maybe they do have pocket 9s and they just don't want the flush draw to get there for free. So with that read that the down bet is maybe a little bit weaker, I do actually take folding off of the table for now. It's still pretty concerned that my opponent is strong with the strong range that bet the flop, so maybe just calling is the right play for this price and then just assess on the river, maybe fold if the flush draw gets in. I am 9.5 hours into the session and I don't think I'm playing my A game at this point anyway, so I go ahead and rip it all in for the 700. Looking back at this play, I think it's way too loose. We lose to a lot on this board when my opponent uses the large bet size on the flop, and even if they have pocket pocket nines, they might just fold. Can get called by nut flush draw with a shove for sure, but I think our equity against the range of hands that's that and all the sets is not great equity. So yeah, really unhappy with this shove here. We all make mistakes though, and I rip it in for 700 here. I get snap called, which is not a good sign. I end up showing my hand, and the villain shows pocket threes, so they did flop a set. We should have known that by the way they played the hand, and we end up getting punished for maximum here. The river is the six of spades, so no help to us, and we do end up losing this pot to villain. And now I'm very glad that I called, that I was going to leave it in the next dealer change, because I'm not playing my A game anymore after 10 hours in the session. Those are one of the most interesting hands I played over this mammoth 10-hour session, and in spite of running pretty well, I actually was pretty disappointed largely with the decisions I made in hands. Not only did I have my typical bias towards over-aggression, there were just some absolute punts in this session, like the 6-2 4-bet, like what the hell is that? I mean, it's just desperate trying to win the stand-up game right at the start of the stand-up game, and I end up losing it anyway, so it's kind of like max punishment for the bad play there, so I can't go too high with my gameplay grade. I did make some good plays, but I think the pocket jacks at the end really highlighted, there's a little exclamation point at the end of a bad session and sort of ruined some of the best plays I did make in the session. So I'm going to land on a C+ grade for today. Maybe could go to a B, but I think those just punts are holding me back, and I'm not super proud with my play overall. In spite of those punts, I did run very well in this session, ended up winning 2,325, which does feel good, but we've got to keep in mind, sometimes you're going to get hit by the deck, sometimes you're not. We just need to consistently play well, and I don't think I did that today. So definitely need to mind that going forward into the next session. Make sure you hit subscribe, and you'll come back with the craziest challenge I have ever done for the vlog. I've been so excited to put this video out for a long time now, but it's the craziest challenge I've ever done. So excited to share with you guys, so make sure you hit subscribe, and you'll get the challenge when it comes out. Just epic video you'll see. For now though, I'm out of here. GG Gamble Gang.